Hi, I'm Cailey. I'm a librarian at Mentor Public Library.
And I'm Meg. I'm also a librarian at Mentor Public Library, and welcome to All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg. Each week, we've been giving you recommendations based on a certain books you may be interested in. This week's theme is beach reads. So these are going to be adult books that really anything that you're interested in. These specific recommendations are just ones that we think would be fun to read this summer. So there you go.
Yes. And right now is a great time to look for a good beach read because we just started our summer reading program. If you haven't already, stop by one of our branches to pick up a bingo sheet for teens and adults. You can also download it at mentorpl.org/summerreading2020. All of today's books that we're going to be talking about are available for free digitally with your library card on Libby by Overdrive or Hoopla. You can also give us a call to have us hold them for you at any one of our locations.
Awesome. All right, Cailey, what's your first book?
So my first book for our beach read theme is called Beach Read.
Oh, nice. All right.
By Emily Henry. And you know that I love a good rom-com. And summer is like the perfect time for those.
Yes.
And I just fell in love with this book. This book is about two writers who knew each other in college and were sort of nemesis. And now they're all grown up and very successful. One of them writes literary fiction. His name is Augustus Gus Everett. Gus. And then January Andrews is a romance novelist, which I think is the perfect name for a romance novelist, by the way. And they're both very successful, but at this particular summer, they're both kind of having a bit of writer's block. And they happen to be in the same neighborhood renting beach houses. So one day they kind of challenge one another to step into the other's shoes. And they challenge each other to sort of write what the other writes, and as a way of kind of getting over their writer's block. And it's really interesting because neither one of them knows how to do what the other one does, but they decide to kind of teach each other. And in doing that, January takes Gus on a bunch of like Hallmark level outings, like going to carnivals and beaches and things. And Gus, in turn, takes her to more serious places, and including some interviews with like hard-hitting news topics, like an interview with a death cult member.
Wow.
Super different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But what they learn from each other is, that what they thought must be easy for the other definitely isn't. And they are both really sarcastic, snarky characters, which I adore in books, especially in romance books. And they kind of learn that like stepping outside of their comfort zone might be the makings of the best work that they've done.
Oh, that sounds so cute. And that's like my favorite type of romance is the opposites attract. I just think, even going back to Pride and Prejudice, it's just like, that's the best type. So I would definitely be interested in that beach read. My first beach read is kind of on the other end of the spectrum. Sometimes when you're sitting on the beach, love a good, suspenseful, psychological thriller book. And that is mine. Mine is called The Guest List by Lucy Foley. And it takes place on a mysterious island off the coast of Ireland. So there's a wedding party in the summertime, and it's like one of these high-profile weddings you read about in magazines. The bride is actually a magazine editor, Julia, and she's marrying Will, who is a rising TV star. So it's one of those weddings. There's a huge budget wedding. There's a huge wedding party. So they're paying to have the whole wedding party go on this ship to sail out to the secluded island off of Ireland. And so on this boat ride, a lot of crazy things happen. So Will's the bridegrooms, they start having this drinking party. They kind of raise a lot of ruckus. And then on the other side, Julia's side, her family and her friends, they start doing some kind of scary things as well, where her best friend, who happens to be a guy, kind of shows that he has some feelings for the bride that are unresolved. So it's kind of scary there. And then what happens is someone dies. And then the cool thing about this book is there's multiple narrators, so from both sides of the wedding party, and they don't immediately tell you who exactly died. So it's really fun to kind of try and piece out based off of each narrator, well, what happened? Everyone's kind of reacting differently to this situation. Plus, once they get onto the island, there's like no cell phone service, so communication is limited, and it's kind of got that eerie, suspenseful tone to it. And there's a huge twist at the end. So just even trying to like see if you can figure out exactly who they're talking about, each character, is kind of half the fun of this novel. So that's a fun summary too.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember working at the library during the summer of Gone Girl. So suspenseful reads can be very popular in the summer when you want to just like dive into something meaty like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's probably an excellent one. The next one I have is called The Unlikely Adventures of the Shergill Sisters by Balli Kaur Jaswal. And this one is a little different as a summer read, but I think it still works. This is about three sisters who were born in England, but their mother is from India, and their father was as well. And their mother's dying wish was for her three daughters to visit these ancestral sites in India. And she lays out this itinerary for them and everything. And even though these sisters could not be more different, they all want to honor their mother's last wish. So there's three sisters. The oldest, Rajni, is a school principal and like such a rule follower. Everything has to be done in a certain order and things. And then there's Jasmine, who is a struggling actress and recently had a big like social media blow up. So her career is really like tanking right now.
Right.
And then there is Sharina, who is the good sister. She's the one who always follows the rules, behaves, and has married into this wealthy family where she has basically a picture perfect life and everyone thinks everything must be perfect.
Yeah.
Which you know never is. But these sisters, they don't get along very well. They haven't been close in a very long time, but they go on this trip together. And I think in the summer, it's always great to read a book where someone is going on a trip, and especially this summer where nobody gets to go on many trips. This is a good escapism kind of story. These sisters, they go to India, and only one of them has ever been there before. And when she went, she vowed to never go back. And they go to India, and it's this huge culture shock for them because they are Indian women, but they are British women. They are British Indian. They are not women who have spent any time growing up in this Indian culture. So they have this sort of what they thought it was going to be like versus what it actually is dichotomy going on, which is really interesting. They also talk about how they have this tight itinerary that they're trying to keep to visit all these places their mom wants them to visit. But they don't really have any downtime because it's not very safe for women to be traveling alone in India. There's a lot of assumptions made, and it's also just a little dangerous. But along the way, they're visiting these sites, and they're learning more about their mother. They're learning more about where she came from, but they're also learning about each other, and they're growing closer again. And the trip changes them all. It opens up old wounds. It illuminates a lot of things about their mother, about misunderstandings amongst the sisters, and it shows them a whole different view of the world in general. And they all have their own problems they're dealing with, of course. So that's also tied into it as well, of just these different places that these women are in their lives. So it was an excellent read with a lot of different things happening in it. And I think a perfect thing to like dive into for the summer.
Sounds great. I love it. I love family stories as well that kind of lean into that, that whole dichotomy of relationships. And that's what my last book is also kind of plays into a little bit, going to a whole different region of the world. It's called How the Penguins Saved Veronica by Hazel Prior. So this one, as the title would maybe allude to, we're going to be heading to Antarctica in this one. So it's
not super summery, Meg.
That's true. It's not too summery, but definitely a different place. So basically what happens in this one, Veronica is the main character, and she's in her 80s. She's getting older, but she's very rich, and she's kind of alone. She doesn't live with anyone. The only person she ever really sees is her cleaning lady, who comes in and cooks for her and cleans for her. And she's wondering, what am I going to do with all of this huge fortune I've amassed? Where's it going to go to after I die? And while she's thinking about this, she learns that she has a grandson that she never knew about, named Patrick. And then she's very eager. She wants to meet Patrick. And she finds that, he's very young, and he's like a teenager, and there's this huge gap between them. And she's like, I don't think I can give my money to you. Like, he's smoking weed and doing all these things, and she's like, no way. So when she's all off in a huff, she sits down and watches TV, and she watches a documentary, and she sees the penguins in Antarctica, and she falls in love, and she says, this is what I'm going to give all my money to, not Patrick. I'm going to give them to these penguins and to this cause. So with all her money and her resources, she calls up scientists and pretty much demands them, doesn't really give them a choice, and is going out on an expedition to Antarctica. I want to see these penguins up close. So she goes to Antarctica, and it's kind of, her heart begins to melt when she sees these animals. One in particular, this little baby penguin, she names it Pip, and he's kind of an orphan, and so she kind of adopts it and takes care of it on the camp, and that just begins to start a little bit, so much so that she actually invites her grandson Patrick, saying, do you want to come to Antarctica with me? And he agrees. He doesn't have much going on in his life. He's between jobs. What have I got to lose? So he goes to Antarctica, and as he spends time with his grandma and these penguins, he begins to learn more about her, and she begins to learn more about him. One of the cool things is Veronica actually gives her grandson this journal that she wrote when she was a little girl during World War II. Her parents both actually died during World War II, and she lets Patrick read it, and as he reads these stories of her childhood, he begins to understand her better. And it's just a really cute, uplifting story. I think, despite the coldness, perfect for summer reading.
I think that sounds so sweet.
I know, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. So that's all we have for today. We will be back next week with teen summer romance novels.
That's fun. That's also fun for summer. And once again, we are beginning our summer reading today. So come in and get a bingo card or download it from our website. You have a chance to earn some prizes and read even more cool ideas. We have some cool suggestions on our bingo cards for that. So
yes. All right. We'll see you next week, and happy reading.
Bye.